The disappearance of D.B. Cooper, the world's most famous skyjacker. On November 24, 1971, the day before Thanksgiving, a man who would become one of the greatest mysteries in modern history walked into Portland International Airport. He bought a one-way ticket to Seattle, Washington on Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305, paying just $20 in cash. He gave the name Dan Cooper, though this fake name would later be wrongly remembered as D.B. Cooper. Dressed in a dark business suit, white shirt, black tie, and a trench coat, he appeared to be an unremarkable man in his mid-40s. Nothing about him hinted at the extraordinary crime he was about to commit. As the Boeing 727 prepared for takeoff, Cooper calmly boarded and settled into seat 18C, or by some accounts, 18E. The other passengers saw nothing unusual in his behavior. He ordered a bourbon and soda, lit a cigarette, and waited. Flight 305 was a short trip, just 30 minutes from Portland to Seattle, and carried 36 passengers and 6 crew members. What began as an ordinary flight would soon become one of the most infamous mysteries in aviation history. Shortly after takeoff, Cooper handed a note to Florence Schaffner, a flight attendant. Initially, she assumed it was a flirtatious message and slipped it into her pocket without reading it. Cooper leaned in and whispered, "Miss, you'd better read that note. I have a bomb." Shocked, Schaffner opened the note, which declared that Cooper had explosives and instructions for her to sit beside him. He then opened his briefcase, revealing red cylinders, wires, and a battery, convincing evidence of his threat. Calmly and methodically, Cooper dictated his demands: $200,000 in negotiable American currency, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck on standby at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport to refuel the plane upon landing. Schaffner relayed the message to the cockpit, and the crew immediately contacted air traffic control, who alerted the FBI. Despite the growing tension, Cooper remained polite and composed. Witnesses would later describe him as soft-spoken, courteous, and even friendly. As the plane circled above Seattle, awaiting the ransom and parachutes to be assembled, the passengers remained unaware of the drama unfolding. Cooper assured the crew that no harm would come to anyone if his demands were met. After several tense hours, the plane landed in Seattle, where Cooper's requests were granted. FBI agents delivered a bag containing the $200,000 ransom and $20 bills, along with 4 parachutes. Cooper allowed the 36 passengers and 2 flight attendants to get off, keeping only the pilots, a flight engineer, and a single flight attendant, Tina Mucklow, on board. He outlined specific instructions. The plane was to fly at an altitude of 10,000 feet, at a speed. Once the plane was refueled, Cooper told the crew to set a flight path to Mexico City, no greater than 200 knots, with the landing gear down and the flaps at a 15-degree angle. Additionally, he insisted that the cabin remain unpressurized. Somewhere between Seattle and Reno, Nevada, over the dense, rain-soaked forests of southwestern Washington, Cooper took action. With the flight crew locked in the cockpit as he ordered, he opened the back stairs of the Boeing 727, a unique feature of the aircraft, and jumped into the dark, stormy night, carrying the ransom money and wearing a parachute. When the plane landed safely in Reno, law enforcement swarmed it, only to find the cabin empty. D.B. Cooper had vanished. Another story was about the name D.B. Cooper. After the hijacking, the FBI started interviewing potential suspects. One of them was a man named D.B. Cooper, but he had no connection to the crime. A reporter mistakenly published this name in an early news report, and it stuck. Even though the man on the plane called himself Dan Cooper, the world remembers him as D.B. Cooper. The search for Cooper became one of the most extensive and expensive manhunts in U.S. history. The FBI scoured a vast area of wilderness where they believed Cooper could have landed, yet no definitive trace of him was found. They interviewed hundreds of suspects, combed through passenger lists, and even analyzed the money for clues. The $200,000 ransom consisted of marked bills, and the serial numbers were widely circulated, yet none of the money appeared in circulation. 9 years later, in 1980, a surprising find brought the mystery back to life. A young boy named Brian Ingram was digging along the Columbia River near Vancouver, Washington, when he dug up a bundle of old $20 bills. The serial numbers matched Cooper's ransom money, but the discovery only deepened the puzzle. How had the money ended up there, miles from the presumed drop zone? And why was only a portion of the ransom recovered? Over the years, the case caused countless theories and suspects. Some speculated that Cooper was an experienced skydiver or a former military paratrooper, given his knowledge of aircraft and parachuting. Others argued that he was a beginner, pointing to his choice of parachutes. One of them was a training parachute that couldn't be controlled. Theories about what happened to him varied, from him surviving and escaping to him dying in the rough wilderness. Among the most prominent suspects were Richard Floyd McCoy, a Vietnam veteran and hijacker who committed a similar crime in 1972, and Dwayne Weber, who reportedly admitted on his deathbed that he was Cooper. However, none of the suspects were definitively linked to the crime, and the FBI officially closed the case in 2016, citing a lack of new evidence. D.B. Cooper's disappearance remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history. The man who walked onto Flight 305 with a briefcase full of dynamite, or at least the illusion of it, vanished without a trace, leaving behind a trail of questions. Did he survive the jump and live out his life being unknown? Or did the stormy night and dense forest claim him? Even today, the story of D.B. Cooper lives on, showing how fascinating the mystery is. A man who went against the rules, pulled off a brave crime, and vanished into the night. Cooper's story still fascinates and confuses people. Whether he was a clever planner or a man willing to take a big risk, his identity and what happened to him are still one of the most interesting mysteries today.